when they were doing construction. Right. So I just think that they just haven't done away with that contract.
Yeah, but the new director is connecting WSU to the transit system, and making that a more vigorous, change in the day. But you know, change doesn't come easy, quick, or cheap.
All right, good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning. Welcome to Edgemore Park Rec Center. So we change our District 1 breakfast around the district 4 times a year, so happy to be over here. And we are in a room which you might have heard on the news. There were some young people who were bored and decided to break out all of these windows. So, but we are still here anyway. And I'm hoping that once WPD figures out who it was, we can have a little conversation with those young folks. More so than just throw them in jail. We need to have a conversation about why this is wrong. And I hope that they get some community service, because I see some work that can be done around here. So I'll reach out to the chief about that. But again, welcome. It's June, it's crazy. We're already halfway through 2019. So today we're going to talk about some summer activities. We've got some wonderful folks here in Wichita. But we want to get today kicked off as usual with our fire department to hear about what's going on in District 1. I hope everything is still quiet. So we'll turn it over to you.
Hello, Captain Hirsch. Thanks for having me. Big news in the city right now is we just had a recruit class come out of 15 kids that just graduated Thursday, and today's about half of them are starting today. We also, today is the first day for a new ladder truck at Station 18 at 29th and Webb. So that's an addition to our 4 ladder trucks that we have now. This will be our 5th one. It's called Truck 5. That was funded partially by a general grant. If you don't know how the grants work, I'm sure all of you do, but the city pays for half the cost of the truck, and the federal government pays for the other half. And part of that grant was not only the truck, but the personnel to man that truck, which was either 9 or 12 personnel. So that's a good thing for the citizens of Wichita. It's a good thing for our department. It adds, gives us another capability on that part of town. Typically, the ladder trucks we have right now are in the core part of town, ladder 1, ladder 2, or truck 1 and truck 2, downtown on Broadway. Truck 3 is right down the street here on Edgemore, and then truck 4 is on the west side of town. So truck 5 will cover the northeast part of town, and that'll give us a lot of good work. And it was well needed. So that's the big news from the fire department. Is there any questions on anything you've seen or heard about?
I just had somebody ask if the burn ban was lifted officially, and I told them, yes, I thought so, but I thought I'd ask.
Yeah, typically the burn ban is for sure in April, right? And I think if I remember right, it was a little bit dry in the first couple weeks of May.
I can't remember.
I can't either, but I think it extended for another week or 2 into May. But yeah, with all the rain now,
Yeah.
it's for sure over. So.
All the rain washed my memory away.
Yeah.
You guys doing free fans?
Yes, I believe so. If you want a free fan, I believe Station 1 and Station 2 have those. They can go down there, and there's no paperwork or anything involved. I think they just hand them out, I believe.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Who all went to the Riverfest last night? One person. So the parade route has changed, and I liked it a lot more. So last year we turned from some shaded areas right into the sun, and it was hot, beating down on everyone. And this year we made a left into a more shaded area. Seemed like there was even more people this year, so that was pretty awesome. So we're going to jump right into some good information. If you haven't seen online, we do have a budget simulator. I want to encourage everybody after you hear this presentation to take that, because we do get to review that data as we're making decisions as a city. So if you care, it looks at your property tax bill, but even if you're renting, you can look at how much your house would be worth and use that and really show us what your priorities are. Some of us, you know, we think we know what you want, but let us know directly. So get on that, check it out, and we'll have a presentation about that. But I just want to encourage you as you're hearing this, make sure you do that. I want to know what are your priorities when it looks at that, and if you talk to people, let me not say that. But definitely check that out and take the opportunity. So I will turn it over to you. You want me to hand this out?
Is that just on the city website?
Sure, and you know, I have handouts for you. I've got this basket here of handouts and Smarties, because if you participate in this, I think it's Smarties, so I can pass those around too.
And you're not above bribery of candy. Oh, thank you, sir. Yes, we will. Oh, we will have to go. Three ways.
I'll go ahead and get started by introducing myself as the rest of the handouts go around. Good morning, my name is Elizabeth Goultry. I am the budget officer for the city of Wichita now. That's a role that Mark Manning had for quite a while, and he's transitioned into the treasurer role. I worked in the city for 13 years now, so this is pretty exciting.
Well, thank you. It's a huge job. Thank you very much.
So everyone's got their handouts. On slide number 2, just some background. Since 2017, the city of Wichita has been using a zero-based budgeting approach to develop the budget. So what that means is we looked at all of our operations and took them down to a clean sheet approach and built up from there. From that process, we developed a new mission statement, which is to, as an exceptionally well-run city, we'll keep Wichita safe, grow our economy, build and maintain dependable infrastructure, and provide conditions for living well. So this mission statement aligns to all the things that we fund out of the budget process as well as the CIP. All right. On slide 3 is some information about the budget simulator. It was opened up to the public on May 13th, and we'll have it open for another 2 weeks until June 15th. The results will be available online on that same website once we have compiled all the results. And for folks watching at home on Facebook Live, the website is wichita.budgetsimulator.com. It ties into the zero-based budgeting effort because we've identified priorities, but what we're looking to do is see what the feedback that residents give us on where they'd like to see their property tax dollars spent. So has anyone used the simulator yet?
I have.
So what you do when you log in, it's very simple. The only number that you need to enter is your property value if you have that. If not, it defaults to an average. But you just slide to the right for services that you're interested in increasing, and it tells you the impact of that change, or slide to the left for things that you're interested in decreasing, and it shows you the impact. And then at the end, it tells you how much your property tax would go up in dollars and percent, and what that amount would be. It's pretty exciting. We have about, I think we're over 1,100 responses so far. The feedback we've been getting from residents is really positive. People are just really excited to see the impact, to understand, to put all these things together. A lot of times we do strategic planning about different things like swimming pools or police or fire, but to put it all together in one place is really impactful. So we are reaching out to the community, like you all, to get as many responses as we can. And one thing I challenge you, in addition to telling friends and family about it, is if you have any places where you have a community bulletin board, maybe a favorite coffee shop or your church or someplace like that, I've got about 15 posters up here that people can take home with them. So 2 more weeks, pretty exciting. On slide 4 is what everyone is always looking for, which is a calendar for the year. So June, July, it's funny, the council member said summer activities and events, and I think the budget, because that is a summer activity and event for me. This is my summer, right? This is my summer of discovery, right? So June, July, and August are our busiest months. We kicked off the process with the simulator. That'll be open for 2 more weeks. Then immediately after, the following week, we'll take some of the themes that residents have given us in the simulator, and we'll have a social media town hall on Wednesday, June 26th. After the town hall event, we'll put all that information together and provide feedback, and we have a month, basically a month between the town hall and when the city manager presents the budget. And I think it's really important to point this out to everyone, that there's an entire month that we'll be reviewing all this information and matching feedback to the budget we're gonna be developing. The budget will be presented on June 23rd, which is a Tuesday. Then we'll have a public hearing on August 6th, and then a public hearing and adoption of the budget on August 13th. All those meetings are at 9 a.m. at City Hall in the council chambers. So now let's turn our attention to the general fund. The general fund is the main taxing fund of the city. It's about a third of the city budget, and it's the main source of funding for those city departments that residents care about most, like police, fire, parks, and street maintenance. Due to technological and legal changes, future growth for revenue is expected to be less than it has been in the past. A lot of that is related to franchise fees for things as people cut the cord, like cable television and landlines. People, as they move, they don't get new ones, or they find other ways to do those types of things. And also just technology means that buildings are more energy efficient and appliances are more water efficient, and that impacts our revenue. Revenues are also economically sensitive and are impacted, of course, by property tax valuation as well. Oh my goodness. Something happened.
Which is going up, right?
Pardon?
Property tax valuations are going, I got a pretty big jump.
Yeah, we get the overall, for the city of Wichita assessed valuation notice by June 15th, so we don't know yet. No wonder this seems so small. So on slide 6, describes the general fund revenues. Property tax is of course the largest part of the city of Wichita budget. It's a little over a third. What I think surprises people a lot is that franchise fees are about a fifth of the budget at 20%. That's one that people isn't usually at top of mind. Sales tax is a little over a tenth, and then there's a number of other sources there. On slide 7, just like a show of hands, I mean, in 2018, we had an ending surplus of $2.5 million in the general fund. I think for a lot of people, if you would ask them, 2018 felt like a pretty good year, especially after what we've been through. So if you look at those blue bars though, 2018 revenues increased by 3.8%. But if you look back at those gray bars, which is before I was working at the city of Wichita, the good times, I guess.
Which one is that?
No, slide 7. There's
It's
a
on
number-
page 4. Page 4 is, the slides are numbered on the little videos, thank
You
you.
got it? Come on, Lonnie, you can get this presentation.
Right? Yeah.
So if you look at these blue bars, our revenue growth since the last recession, and then the gray bars are the revenue growth in the period before. So what you'll notice from the old pattern was that if there was a recession, revenue would drop, like in 2002, then it would be stagnant, like in 2003, and then it would come roaring back, which is what happened in 2004, starting with sales tax and interest earnings. What we've experienced since we've recovered, so to speak, from the last recession is that revenue growth has been much, much slower. And a lot of that's related to those technological changes, and that's a good thing to keep in mind. On the following slide, a lot of people there's a lot of talk about entering another recessionary period. We have not modeled a recession into this budget, but just some information for you to have in your back pocket. Recessions tend to impact the city most strongly on a lagging basis related to assessed valuation, which is your property tax assessment. That's lagging, how that impacts the budget. Nearly all of our revenue is impacted negatively during a recession, and usually general fund revenues are flat or decline for 1 or 2 years. The other one that's really hit strongly during the recession is interest earnings. on to the next page and the next slide. About the expenditure side of the general fund, we were just talking about revenue. Salaries and benefits are about 3/4 of total expenditures for the general fund. We're very much in a people-heavy business. Other expenditures tend to grow slowly and unpredictably, but with the exception of fuel, which has some volatility. Expenditure growth has been slow, it's been pretty steady since 2009, much slower growth than the decade before. And most of that growth has been in public safety. So if you notice on the next picture here, public safety growth, police and fire is that green line. The blue line in the middle, that's the inflationary growth based on CPI. And then the line on the bottom that's blue and red, that's growth in all other services. So park and rec, street maintenance, arts and culture, and libraries. So even though our revenues were declining on this slide over here, and we were having to cut the budget in order to balance it every year, we still had very steady growth in public safety. And how we balanced the budget was on all other general fund services. Does that make sense? Everyone's following who wants to be following. It's very important for us to have a balanced general fund budget every year and to maintain our reserves. General fund reserves are very important for flexibility, for an emergency, and for cash flow. Our property tax is received only twice a year, so that's our biggest revenue source, and we only receive it twice. So it's really important to have cash reserves on hand. Our policy is to have reserves of at least 1/10. Currently, we're just under 15% of our operating budget. Compared to some other communities, that's still pretty low. But we have solid reserves, and we worked really hard, everyone worked really hard to balance the budget when revenues were declining. So that's something that everyone can be proud of. Again, reserves are important because they provide flexibility. For example, when the most recent federal government shutdown was the longest one, I think, in history. And so how federal grants work is we incur the costs, and then the federal government reimburses us for those expenditures. And so during that time, we weren't getting reimbursed by the federal government, but because we have a solid reserve cash position, we were able to continue programs without any interruption. So also rating agencies, who are very important in the credit, they determine the credit ratings, which is very important when we issue debt. They monitor reserves very closely, and a change or decrease in reserves is viewed negatively by those rating agencies, and that would impact our ability to finance projects, capital projects, because if the interest rate went up, we would be able to finance fewer projects. So looking forward, we expect moderate expenditure growth and revenue growth with structural imbalance moving forward. What structural imbalance means, a cyclical imbalance means that you're out of balance because there's something economic going on in the economy. A structural imbalance means that your imbalance is there regardless of economic conditions. So we expect, looking forward, to have a continued emphasis on public safety, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in the future. And then we're going to continue to use that zero-based budgeting process to focus dollars on priority areas. We're very much interested in delivering excellent service in priority areas and then continuing to improve our processes internally. So slide 14 on page 7. Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You may be gonna answer in a minute. You talked about structural balance, and is that the going to the internet, that stuff that you were talking about, or are you going to define that later? The structural balance.
The structural balance. Some of our basic, in a nutshell, our revenue growth is slower than our expenditure growth. So we have to continually, two things, you have to find a way to spend less so that you can be more efficient is the number one thing, or the less favorable alternative is that you have to do less. You have to do less services. So But the structural imbalance is shown on slide 14 at the bottom of page 7. So if you notice there, we're projecting a slight surplus in 2019 of $1 million. We're projecting being balanced in 2020, but then if you look at 2021, where it's a deficit of 1.7 million, but then it grows to 2.4 million in 2023. So a deficit that grows is a sign of a structural imbalance. So everyone, yes.
So thank you, Councilman Johnson, for having your meeting records here, because I live around the corner. So, for those who may not know what you define CPI, and when you talked about in the budget, the bigger slice of the pie going towards public safety, do you have any reports there that can measure the success of the funding put into public safety? Are we actually getting the bang for our buck?
Yeah, those are both good questions. She's referring to the slide with the many colors on page 5, slide 10. The CPI is the consumer product index. It's the price index. Yeah, it's what's used to measure inflation. Right. So as far as outcomes related to the public safety initiative, those additional civilian and commission positions were added last year. So we don't have a full year of data yet for them. We also manage the performance management program in the budget office. So we'll be watching the data closely to see the change between the two. But I have heard one of the initiatives in that is to fund a crime analyst supervisor and a crime analysis section. And I think they've been getting good results from that because there is so much crime data, but having the time to focus solely on that, a lot of times I think they're just hopping from call to call. Right. So we'll stay tuned.
Okay.
Stay tuned. So yeah, and I also like having it here too. So that's our projected outlook on slide 14. So this is probably what you came for. So this is exciting, not something that we've seen for a long time to be this early in the process and expecting a slight surplus. What initially the plan is to use that surplus for 2019 to invest in things that make us more efficient in the future. So one example of this is in street maintenance. They purchased a one-person pothole patching truck, which is hard to say quickly. So there were 2 people doing the pothole patching before, and now it only requires 1 person. So that second person got moved to another crew to do some work that wasn't getting done. So those are the types of things that we're looking at improving this year that'll make us more efficient in the future, because efficiency is one of the best ways to attack that structural imbalance. Yes?
I know that these are basic summarized totals, but having reviewed the budget last year, I know that you had files out on your website that contained the specifics of the 2019 budget as well as the proposed 20 budget, including the defunding of city arts, the defunding of Cowtown, the defunding of the animal shelter. So my question is are those defunding projects also within these figures, number 1? And number 2, can we go out to the website and start seeing the physical budget files with those figures?
The budget documents will be available, the city manager presents the budget on July 23rd. So that's when the budget documents will be available. But preliminarily, those services that you refer to are funded in this projected outlook. The biggest change from last year to this year when we were projecting it is interest earnings and sales tax. So I feel that our sales tax projection last year was sound based on the data that we had available at the time. We actually had a decline in sales tax for a year, but then in the second quarter of 2018 we had it bounced back, and so that makes a big difference in our projections. So if we would have known then what we know now, but that is,
Hindsight, right?
that's all what projections is. So, any other questions on the projected outlook? Okay, moving along. Now we'll move into the CIP. The CIP is a 10-year program that funds capital projects. Something that the city council asked us to do in 2018 that's been a lot of fun to work on is a prioritization matrix for scoring every single CIP project. We have about 150 proposed or tax-funded projects that are being considered, plus all the water, sewer, and stormwater and airport projects. So we have been scoring all those projects. We develop financial capacity models based on revenue and cost of projects. We also look at the operating budget impact of all these projects, and we look back to the mission statement as well. So on slide 16 at the bottom of that page, the prioritization model includes alignment with the community investments plan, so that the feedback on the community for that is that the top priorities for community investments are streets, roads and bridges, and then public safety. And then the third priority is arts, culture, transit, parks and rec, and libraries. Also, there's a priority in the community investments plan to maintain what we have. So those projects get a higher score. And also there's a priority placed on investing in the established central area, which is from Rock to Ridge and from 29th Street North to 31st Street South. Another thing we look at is consistency with planning processes, plot plans that have already been out to the community approved by the city council. Financial considerations, we're looking for things that have a positive impact. And then other considerations are like engineering studies. So it's really important that the CIP and the budget are linked together. For example, we're talking about, well, a project has been initiated for a new East Police Station. And that obviously links to the police staffing study, because currently all the stations are over capacity because we've been adding officers since those stations were built. Both the CIP and budget are funded with a portion of the city's mill levy, and they both align to the same goals. So on slide 18, you'll see that in 2019, the mill levy for the debt service fund declined from 8.5 mils to 7.5 mils. That was, 1 mil was shifted to the general fund to implement phase 1 of the police staffing study. So with a mill levy shift of 7.5, it makes funding the CIP, the general obligation at-large projects, a little more challenging than it had been in the past. If you look on the next page of this slide here, what you can notice is the group at the bottom with the parallel lines, that debt service fund mill levy of 7.5 is the lowest debt service fund mill levy that we have on this chart, which goes back to 1971. So it makes scoring projects and prioritization and talking to the community even more important than it has ever been.
I'm sorry. Just, can you help me understand, because I'm a little newer to this stuff, debt service fund, it went down by a point, which is important, you said, but debt service, that means paying on our loans. So
Right, the debt service fund is we have, it's our second taxing fund. It funds all capital projects. So a big part of it is servicing debt. We also have cash funded projects. So the debt service fund is where any projects related to facilities like fire stations and police stations would be, big street maintenance projects, any sort of park facilities, those would all be in the debt service fund.
okay, so it's not just paying debt, it's also big projects.
Well, I mean, yes, some of our projects we fund with cash, and then some we issue debt, but all of these at-large project generally means that there's no revenue that pays for it. Like a water project, you pay a water bill every month, and that funds water operations, but also funds water capital. But these at-large projects, they don't have revenue that pays for them. so they're the projects for everybody, they're the general, I mean, that's the at-large, they're everybody's projects, I guess, they're for the community. So, the water projects are for the community, but there's no revenue source for them.
Sure. I'll ask more questions.
Yeah, we'll
Thank
get
you.
into the debt service, but it is a tricky name, debt service fund, it sounds like it's just paying debt, but it does so much more. So, on slide 20, this is for the whole CIP. What you'll notice here is that water and sewer is a big part of our CIP. Those are big operations. The biggest slice on the left is arterials, which is streets. Streets, it's slide 20 on page 10. It's a pie chart. And then this is over the 10-year period. So public facilities is another big piece of it as well. So that's where our CIP dollars go. And then on slide 21 on the next page, this is where the money comes from. So, like the sewer revenue matches the sewer slice of expenditure, same with water. Other big sources of revenue are the GO, the debt service fund, property tax, and then also we have a separate local sales tax fund where half of the local sales tax that goes to the city of Wichita is deposited for road, street, and bridge projects. And in slide 22, a little more description of that. So the debt service fund is what's called completely fungible, which means it can be used for any city of Wichita investment. It is mostly used for streets, parks, and buildings. So does that make sense to everyone? So there's no strings attached. It just needs to be used for capital investments. The transient guest tax, that's the bed tax for hotel stays. It can only use for assets related to tourism and conventions. So, and then the local sales tax, it can only be used for roads, bridges, and highways. Sorry, I'm tongue-tied.
And currently, that's pretty much going to the Kellogg expansion, correct?
Yes,
And is that,
we've funded other bridge projects out of local sales tax. Another big project that was funded out of local sales tax is the Central Rail Corridor project about 12 years ago.
sure, okay.
So, and then the Kellogg, I believe the flyover bridge on the west side was also funded out of the local sales tax fund. So determining debt capacity, this is a big deal because most of our debt we amortize over 10 years. For water and sewer, it's 15 or 20. But looking forward, not just at the projects this year, but what will our future debt capacity be? We have a state of Kansas has a legal limit for debt capacity. We also have bond covenants, which are when we issue bonds, they say we want to make sure that you're going to be repaying these bonds. So we want to make sure that you have this amount of coverage in your funds. And then also the rating agencies, like I said, they're the ones who give us our ratings, which impacts the interest rate when we go out and sell our bonds. They have a lot of feedback for us as well. So on slide 24, our legal debt limit, we're only at about 25% of our legal debt limit. And so that's just one bit of guidance. But that's not the only thing we use when we evaluate our debt. So it's a much bigger deal for smaller communities that might have occasional large projects, and their debt tends to bounce around a lot more than ours. Ours is pretty steady. On slide 25, this is the really important slide that drives everything we do related to GO at-large debt, and that is that our benchmark is 67%. So that's 2/3, and that is a ratio of debt service payments to property tax revenue. So if you look at property tax revenue, so say property tax revenue is 100, you would want debt service payments to be equal to or less than 67. So the line wiggles around quite a bit based on when we issue debt for large projects. Having large GO at large project debt issuances, it very much impacts this. For example, the library project is pretty large and all that debt will be issued at once. And that will also be the case with the aquatics master plan. So moving along into the adopted CIP update, we update, it's a 10-year plan and we update it every year based on,
You got a question?
oh, sorry.
Oh, which version of the aquatics master plan? The one that's gonna be on the council meeting on Tuesday, or
It's-
this, the prior version?
It's the accelerated version, right? Where there's a lot, I think they start this fall with the first round of it, and then there's another round next fall. Yeah, but it's the accelerated version that was just, when did you last talk about
That's
it?
option 3, yes?
Yes.
And that's what they're voting on Tuesday.
That's, I'm aware of that.
Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to know which
That's
one
what's
was
modeled.
a part of this.
Yeah, the main difference with the aquatics master plan, the dollars are the same, but the plan is accelerated, so we had to model that into the CIP because,
That was my question,
Yeah.
because I'm aware of the accelerator.
yeah, so we've been modeled an accelerated aquatics master plan, so it all gets done in 2 years, right? That's what's in the CIP. Based on the community investments plan, this is on slide 26, what you'll see in the CIP, and we're definitely not done yet, we've got a long way to go, but you'll be seeing more funding for street maintenance and rebuild projects. A good example of a rebuild project would be 2nd Street right now in between Washington and the rail corridor. And you'll be seeing fewer large freeway projects, like the Kellogg project is nearing completion. The library branch study is under consideration right now. That's one that we had the heads up to include some funding in there for some of those projects. And also what you'll be seeing is a lot of police and fire stations. And those were in there last year, but you'll still be seeing them. We only have one in the queue. Yes?
On your library branch study, does that include Ryan Angelo?
Yes, all of the branches are included in that. So, right? Because we have a line for each one of them, so. So that's the information, that is a lot of information I've got for you all for your summer kickoff of budget fun. Right, so, keeps me out of trouble. Any other questions for you, or for me, from you, for me? Yeah, sure.
You know, when you get to be my age, you served all almost 17 years of service. Many years ago, I first started questioning what we're doing in transit. And we got this big information about the rail gonna run through Wichita and down to
Oh, right.
I-35. Is there any up-to-date information, or where does that stand at this point?
You know, I do not have any up-to-date information on
It
the.
is still a work in progress.
What does that mean?
We are still talking to the administration about some of the requests that we had.
Okay, is the city participating financially in any of that, or is it all federal funding at this point?
We are asking for all federal funding. We have not talked about city funding at this point.
Okay, good. Now, the other thing is, many years ago, I'm trying to go all the way back, I think Bob Knight was mayor at the time. And we were at a minority business development meeting at Wichita State, and Bob was sitting next to me. And he got to talking about, I think Dr. Curry asked the question. He didn't see any minority participation on Kellogg. And the mayor said, oh, that's all sales tax money. Well, I didn't believe he had any reason not to believe that. But I happened to be in New York a couple of weeks later and ran into a woman from Wichita who worked for the Federal Transportation Agency. She invited us up to her office. And on the shelf had all these notebooks with the various states. And I said, what are those? She said, every dollar of federal funding. So we pulled the one down for Kansas. We opened one up for Wichita. West Kellogg got $77 million of federal money. It never showed up in the city budget. Has not shown up in the city budget. So when I look at stuff like this and it says federal money, and then it says airport over here, how much of the federal money went to the airport or paving or to anything else? I'd like to know in these budgets, when there is federal money, I'd like to see where it goes.
So, regarding federal funding for CIP projects, on the project section of the CIP, for each of the projects that receives other, funding like federal funding, we have each project itemized in the 10-year CIP. I can't speak to the practice in the past, but that's currently how the CIP is built.
Now, the other thing is, I served on a committee that did the evaluation of the $350,000 the city of Wichita spent to try to determine whether or not there ought to be minority participation. The study said yes. I don't think any of you can find a copy of that study in City Hall. It's obvious that the city of Wichita is not participating. And we need to do something about it. Our two major African-American construction companies in Wichita, one is out of business, the other moved his corporate office to Kansas City. We are doing absolutely nothing in promoting these businesses. I mean, nothing. And this does not make sense. Conejo was minority, is no longer, but I still see all the signs about Conejo. I understand what that's about. That's about somebody who bought it is still showing minority participation, which is a lie. So we need to really have this stuff out there so that our young people can decide to stay in Wichita or continue to leave here.
Yeah, as far as the EVE, DVE reporting that's coordinated by purchasing, which is also in the finance department, Cornejo, because they're owned by a different company, does not qualify as an EVE, DVE anymore for reporting. And they have annual reporting for that, of that participation, and it's included, I think it's in the quarterly reports and in the annual CAFR.
Yeah, Chris Hazlett actually came out in February to our breakfast and talked more about that and participation. The company that moved to Kansas City is actually coming back. They're working on our public housing project, RAD, so they're getting a lot of that business. And we've been talking about better ways to incorporate minority businesses into what we're doing as a city. So some of that should be rolling out this summer as well.
I'm happy with that.
If we wanted to find out sort of more details on this stuff, that is where on the website?
If you'd like to go find a 2019 adopted budget, you would, I think there's actually, toward the middle of the budget, toward the middle of wichita.gov is a button for it, but you navigate to the finance department and then budget. We'll be posting, we're going to all the DAB meetings in the next 2 weeks, so we'll be posting this PowerPoint online. But as I said, we won't have the 2020 proposed budget finished until July. So we're definitely in the development stage.
Sorry, I was looking to see if anybody else had a question because I don't want to monopolize. But Evan, thank you for clarifying. I thought this was just something to play and see what our budget looked like. I didn't realize it was a feedback tool.
Yeah.
So that's a very good, piece of information for us to have, that this actually captures feedback and sends it in. It's not just for our knowledge and edification of what the budget looks like. So that's, thank you for that clarification.
And we don't know who you are.
Yeah.
You just see your priorities.
Yeah, it's completely anonymous.
Now, could I make another suggestion? I'm always planning ahead. And every time I see all these floods, and we all know the floods are gonna happen, and we continue to do nothing about it. If you look at a map of this country, of where the oil and gas pipelines are, you'd be afraid to walk. Why don't we create what I'd like to call, and give Kansas some credit, something called the Kansas Aqueduct System. I'd like to see us use the center of I-70 from the Mississippi River through Missouri into Kansas. Once it gets into Kansas, turn north and go up I-80, keep going west on I-70, come down I-35 to I-40, keep going west all the way to California. Now, the Greeks and the Romans had aqueduct systems. And they did it mostly out of stone and rock and had none of the equipment we had. We could use recycled plastic pipe, run it down the middle of the interstates, create retention and detention ponds all the way. So when the river is down in Missouri, we can control the Mississippi level and take it all the way to California. California would love to have it. because it would reduce their fire protection problems when they have no water to fight fires. This is something we could do. It is easy to do, and we've got the resources to do it. I'd like to see Kansas promote something for the rest of the country, the future of the country. There's one other thing I'd like to see us do. We're the biggest city in the state. And I'd like to see us act like it sometimes and not be so selfish. There's no reason for the Fort Scott Hospital to close. Wichita could have kept that open. We really could have. When I served on, I don't remember when it was the Wichita Chamber Board or the State Chamber Board, we were doing a study to see how to get people from Goodland to St. Francis who needed immediate health care. And we were proposing a flight service, emergency flight service from Goodland to Wichita, or from Hayes to Wichita, those kind of things. It died because no money. But there are these kinds of ideas and things that we're a part of the rest of the state. And we've got the most brilliant people in the world in Wichita here. And I would think that we could start to think ahead and look at some of the ways that Wichita can expose itself and help the rest of the state of Kansas. My great-grandfather came here in a covered wagon. He never thought you'd have all this. So there is a way for us to do something. Isn't it?
It is.
All right.
Any other questions on the budget? Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Would anyone like some flyers for community bulletin boards? 3. Okay, she's taking 3. Anyone top her?
All righty, we've got about an hour left and we've got a lot to hit. So I will kick this off to Ms. Giselle Thomas, but I first want to recognize State Senator Aletha Fausto. Thank you for being here. She represents most of District 1, and then we go into 2 other senators' districts, but thank you for being here this morning. So I'll kick it off to Ms. Giselle.
Hello, everyone. I am an America Vista, and I'm serving with the City of Wichita at Atwater Neighborhood Resource Center. I am the Youth Advocacy Coalition Coordinator, and within my position, I connect with different youth serving organizations to be able to allow for them to come together and be able to network with each other to see what programs are going on and what initiatives each other are doing so that they can partner with each other to be able to better serve our youth in Wichita. And we are also inviting those within the community who like to work with youth and help youth as well to come in and also be able to work with these organizations to be able to get that organization and community connection as well. And so going into that, well, from that, I'm going to go into giving some of the programs that we are promoting right now, and then I also have some of the members from our coalition here to be able to speak to you more about the programs that they have to offer for your youth during this summer. And so, first of all, I know a lot of people already know, but for those who don't, there are free summer locations for youth to be able to go and have lunches. Some locations have breakfast, and some locations have snacks as well. And so I have all of these flyers over here on our table. And speaking of my table, I also go to different community events, and I provide a resource table, being able to provide all of these youth resources from the organizations that send me all of their flyers and information. And so I'm trying to continue to get out in the community more. Each month, I at least go to 2 events to be able to provide these resources to the community, because a lot of times the community may have issues getting to our organizations, and so being able to go to them and be able to provide them that information is one thing that we really wanted to do within the Youth Advocacy Coalition, and even some of our members have been getting out into the community more. As I find out information, I send it to them, I invite them to come, and so that's what they're doing. And so we're really wanting to make sure that all of these programs are acknowledged within the community so that any child that needs these programs has the access, has at least the knowledge of the program so that they know that there is something for them to be involved in. And so moving on, we also found out that at Planet Fitness, youth can actually work out at Planet Fitness for free this summer. And so all the way to, I believe it's September 1st, 15 through 18-year-olds are able to go to Planet Fitness and sign up. I also have these flyers on the table, and there are classes, there are scholarships, and so feel free to pick these flyers up. Feel free to contact me as well. My cards are also on the table, and that is a lot of great information and great things that I just have before I bring up some of our members. And then lastly, I have two more things. There is a program at the library amongst all of their programs. This is one of the ones that they're promoting, which is Baby Bookworks for ages 2 and under. They have a sign up where you can actually receive information on early learning activities and make sure that your children are starting at a young age, being able to learn different things, being active in reading and in different activities as well. And these are also on the table. And just lastly, I said that I worked at the Atwater Neighborhood Resource Center. I want to remind you all who know, and then tell all of you who don't know, that this is our great centers. There's 3 of us, and we provide free faxing, scanning, notary, and computer labs as well for the community. And then at the Atwater Center, we do also have a couple of different office spaces. So if you're needing office space, you're needing to meet, then during our hours from 8:30 to 5:30, and then until 5 on Fridays, those offices are available to the community. You call in, you reserve your room, and it's available for you. So feel free to grab some of these as well and let those in your community know about the program as well. And moving on into our wonderful members of the coalition, a few of our youth organizations are here, as I stated before. And so the first one that we have coming up will be Cameron Jackson. And he is with the YMCA. He'll be speaking with you about the late night Saturdays for our teens and other programs that they may have to offer. Yes.
So just a quick question, with resources that you provide, does it also include places where youth can look for jobs who are 18 and 19?
Yes, so actually we go from 0 to 24. We expanded because I was at the time I was 25, and I'm like, I'm still youth, you know. So and so we go all the way up to 24, which is where most of our programs stop. And so Workforce, and then the YMCA with their programs, and the Way to Work program are the few that we found out about. And so as I find out more, then I present more. So I just encourage anyone who knows about any youth programs where they can get access to jobs to let me know, so that I can continue to let the community know and continue to let our organizations working with our youth know. And then any internships and scholarships and different things of that sort, just feel free to let me know. I'm open to all of it because our youth are interested in all of it. You know, there are so many different interests, and so we definitely want to hit those points.
So we have 5 people that are gonna present, so I wanna encourage you to take notes, and then after they all get done, then we'll open it up for questions just to respect time. So make sure you're taking notes.
Right. All right, so we will go on ahead with our first youth organization, the YMCA.
Thank you guys so much for having us here. We just appreciate you guys for allowing us to come in. One of the things I really love, and the only reason I think this job is so wise, is because we are always looking for ways to serve our community. And And one thing we knew for sure is that Wichita had a higher crime rate than the national average, and also 1 out of 4 teens get involved in gang-affiliated activities before the age of 18. And we also knew that we had these great facilities, and every Saturday night we were closing them off at 8 o'clock, and the lights would be turned off. And so when our new CEO, Ron McMahon, came over, he met with the chief of police, and one of the things they talked about was how can we help you, and how can we keep them out of trouble? And one of the ideas we came up with was late night. So late night, every single Saturday night, from now on, we've been doing this for the last 2 years. I started at the South YMCA. We turned our lights on from 8:30 all the way to 11:30 for high school students only. They can come in the facility all for free. They can be around different activities. They can play in the gymnasium. They can also, we feed them every single Saturday night. We also be in the weight room, and there are also a lot of influencers and role models we have come in as well. We also do an impact talk with them for about 10 minutes to just talk to them and present to them the different things going on in the community, as well as just letting them know that there's some people in the community that are here for them. We started the program off, and we started with 25, 50, and then we grew it to about 200. But what we noticed is every single Saturday night, at 12 a.m. I was still there, 12:30 I was still there, 1 a.m. I was still there, past curfew, and kids were still waiting on rides. And I'm like, yo, I have a family, I'm ready to go home. And I'm like, where are you coming from? And it was all the way from the Bel Air area, all the way from Southeast District, in different areas. So what we decided to do is we decided to open up another location at the North Side YMCA. So that way we can have at least 2 different locations. With that being said, when you split off the numbers, now you split up the numbers, now it's the time to get the word out in the community and make sure that each kid from each of these areas can have a place to go and a safe place to go on Saturday nights when they're sitting at home being bored and starting to think about getting in trouble, maybe breaking windows or something along those lines. We would love for them to get a safe place. One of these students I would love to talk about is Cassidy, and I'll finish up here, but Cassidy was a student who came in her freshman year. Her first time, she lived right down the street from the South YMCA. Her first time in the building was through late night. She could never afford a membership to get in. So she came every single Saturday, having a good time. Said Cassidy was a trouble student. Within her freshman year, she was transferred to 3 different schools before the first semester. Just had a rough time, ended up going to an alternative school, got in some trouble with the police officer sometime. One time we had a college fair out where we invited 7 different community colleges come in just to give the students the opportunity as long as WSU. And they met them, and Cassidy got a chance to see them. She said, I really want to go to college. We said, okay, here, we're going to make a deal with you. If you can keep your grades up, we'll give you a free membership for the summer. Well, Cassidy began to excel in that, and we gave her a free membership for the summer. And so there was her first time in the YMCA during the regular hours. Cassidy began to grow with the community, began to grow with the program, so much so that now she's beginning to be an assistant basketball coach. She's also gotten a job prep program. She's got a first summer job in July and several different other activities. Now, that doesn't mean Cassidy is perfect. She's still a pain sometimes, but she's starting to learn and starting to become around the community. One night, at late night, Cassidy saw a police officer. His name was Officer Ice. She recognized him right away. She said, Cam, I cannot stand him. Every time I get in trouble, he's the one that arrests me every single time. And she was like, I'm ready to leave. I'm out of this place. I said, Cassidy, just hold on. Let's just give him a second. What she noticed was this police officer, because we have a partnership with the Wichita Police Department, that we allow them to come in, at least one officer there every single Saturday night. What she noticed is this officer began to play basketball with the kids, began to hang out with the kids. And next thing she knows, she begins to go up and get the courage to talk to Officer Ice. And Officer Ice opened up his phone and showed a picture of the family, his new baby. And all of a sudden, it wasn't a perfect relationship, but there was this bridge, this connection that began to happen just because we were allowed to get on common ground where they didn't see him as a police force or anything like that. And what happened next was Cassidy ran away again, and lo and behold, guess who picked her up? Officer Ice and some other police officers. And Cassidy was having a moment of breakout, and Officer Ice picked her up, and she said, I only want to talk to Officer Ice. And they had this relationship. He calmed her down. He didn't arrest her. He let her go back home. Come to find out, one day I just sat down with Cassidy and said, what is your story? I just got to know. She said she was born in prison. At 2 years old, she was adopted by her foster mom. Her foster mom, she stayed with him until she was about 10. And then her foster mom and foster dad, the mom made a decision and says either her or me. And so the dad chose his wife. She went back to the foster care, back to her same mother. And here's a girl that's been around having these crazy cycles that I couldn't even imagine having at that young age. And yet when people see her, we always think about her as trouble, trouble, trouble. But when we give her a chance to shine, here she is now, being involved in community, being involved in Y, still coming every single day. She comes from about 9 a.m. to about 9 p.m. every single day, just looking for a place and called community. It's only because we asked one question: how do we serve our community? And now times Cassidy by 200 kids, even more kids in Wichita that we can at least serve every single Saturday. So that's our program that we do every single Saturday night. South YMCA, North YMCA. We spend about $1,300 per kid last in 2018. We are looking for community leaders to come help volunteer. If you want to work, we can hire staff to work as well. We're also looking for different programs, different businesses to come present, and also just some good influencer partners. Or if you want to sponsor a night, you're more than welcome to help serve the food, bring the food in, different things. And if you guys should help get the word out on this program to get kids in for free at the YMCA North or South YMCA. All right, thank you so much for allowing me to come in.
Thank you. So I do have actually some of those flyers out on the table outside where you signed up, so feel free to grab those. And then, so next up we have Wichita Transit, and Ms. Reagan Alexander will be talking to you more about what they have available for our youth this summer.
So like she said, I'm Raven Alexander. I am a transportation coordinator at Wichita Transit, and I wear many different hats. But one of my hats, which is I'm here today, is for community outreach. So we are not offering the Stay Guest program, which was a collaboration of several different city departments this summer. But we are going to continue to allow students, the youth, not just students, the youth, 18 and under, to ride transit for free all summer long. Woo-hoo. So previously we have had mandated that they come down to the transit center, enroll, and get this Say Yes ID. They can use their student IDs. So we're going to kind of remove some of that barrier. So for those that have not already tossed their IDs or whatnot, those middle school and high school kids, they can just show the driver their ID and they are able to board the bus. So for like our elementary kids, those that have already lost them, some of them lost them earlier this year, but those that have lost their IDs or need an ID, they will need to come down to the transit center, and we will be more than happy to issue them an ID so that they are able to use those services as well. Another thing that's going to be different about this is that they are able to keep these IDs and use them for the school year. So as we segue into the youth passes for getting to school, they can keep that same ID and not have to come back and get another one here in a couple of months. So the program is called RIDE. So this is a new logo that you will begin to see on the ID, start seeing it out on the website, different things as far as that. IDs and things are available to get on Monday. And Giselle has some information on tables, and then I have some as well. Beginning on Monday, you are able to go down to the transit center, take your youth down there, and they are able to get their ID. Now, for our high school kids, they do need to have some sort of verification. If they can pull up their student view on their phones, because they should be able to access them. I got 2 teenagers myself. If a parent's bringing them, they have their parent view. Just something that kind of verifies their age, because believe it or not, I do have adults that will come in and say they are 18 years old, and they're really 30 years old. I mean, no lie. I had someone at the library using a Say Yes pass that was 30 years old. So we do want to kind of just verify, yes, you are 18. For those that are in programs that are our students, that are not USD 259, that are not one of the private parochial schools. So for those that are like at Cancel, those that participate like in the Children's Home program, I think it's Edgenuity, those online classes, if they have their caseworker come down with them, or if they can verify as well that they are still students, things as far as that, they will be issued a RIDE ID as well. So we're not going to exclude them for participating in the program because of whatever their situation may be. So basically it's free rides between June 1st through August 31st, and then of course once we start September 1st we'll go into our school program. Our bus routes We get you a number of places. One thing that's new this summer is that we are going to the zoo. So for anyone that wants to get on Route 11, which is going to be the one that services the zoo, it's no longer going to Newmarket Square. It's because it's making that zoo trip. They're able to ride that bus for free. So even if you want to take your grandkids, your niece and nephews, your kids to the zoo, things as far as that, and want to give the bus ride a try, you're able to get there on Route 11 for free. So why not get out there and give it a try? Of course, we still pass some of the movie theaters. We go to the sports forum, the Advanced Learning Library, which is a great place for kids to get out there and participate in their reading program. Of course, there's routes that access Atwater. So several different places and things that you can go. If you need help with trip planning, say you haven't ridden a bus with all the different changes, some of you may have never ridden a bus at all. It's my job to help you kind of trip plan. So we do have an app that can do it, but if you want to give me a call, we can go step by step what it is that you need to do. For those that may work with groups, my calendar is filling up. I do go out and do travel training with groups. I can do it individually. I know come Monday or Tuesday, I have a daycare that I'll be taking out to get their IDs and teaching them how to ride so that they can go on field trips all summer long. So do not hesitate to call me, put me on your schedule, and I'll be more than happy to come out and work with your group and things as well. Yay! Yes, I'm sorry, she stopped it. So, it started back in January, but WSU students are still able to still ride for free as well. So still just show your WSU ID and they're good to go as well.
Thank you. I have to make sure she put that out there since we go all the way over to 24, like I said. You know,
Yes.
But thank you so much. So next up we have Progeny and Camp Destination, and that is going to be spoken to you by Ms. Marquita Atkins. Come on.
Hi, thank you for having me this morning. I'm going to talk about Progeny first in respect to Tyler, who's been here since this morning. And I don't know what his Saturday looks like, so I want to give him time to be young and be free. So Progeny, any youth group that you ever see me work with, I'll always start with our youth are the best investment that we can make that yields the best returns. I'm hyper-focused on our youth because I feel like in order to cultivate good fruit, we have to start with our roots. And I feel like we're a society that's very reactive. So we're trying to fix things constantly instead of being proactive and giving young people the tools and the resources that they need to be successful. Progeny is a group of young people that have been touched by the juvenile justice system. We are teaching them leadership and how to advocate for themselves and change policy in the way that it impacts them. We work with a national program called Youth First, and our whole mission is no kids in jail. We do not believe kids in jail. So when you said that, Brandon, this morning about the kids that knocked out the windows and you said, you know, we just don't want to throw them in jail, it resonates with me because that's not what we're supposed to do. We're Progeny, we say our stories are bigger than the box you try to put us in. So we're taking these kids and we're putting them in boxes and we're not looking at the root of their stories. And when you start to talk to these kids and hear their stories, you'll realize, just like Cameron was saying with this student, that their stories are bigger. And it's usually adults are the catalyst to the kids' pain. And we're remedying this situation by sticking them in jail, and that does not work for me. The same thing is we are taking these young people and we're telling them that they have no value when we take them and we just stick them in jail. Foster care is an issue with a lot of the young people that I work with. They're being bounced around, and their parents have already showed them that they're not invested in them. And so that's already weighed heavy on their heart and their spirits. They get put in foster care homes that are not necessarily the best fit. Now, when we have news articles saying that they're taking kids and they're spending the night in the office facility, and we're not finding enough spaces to put these kids in, the first thing that we want to do when it's like that is what? What do? We stick them in jail. We stick them in jail. We put them in spaces because we just need a place to put these kids. We cannot treat our children like throwaways. And the one thing when it comes to youth of color specifically, we hypersexualize, we make them growner than what they're supposed to be. So it's easy to take our kids I just have one of our youth of progeny, young black male who was profiled the other day. He was sitting in front of his house and with his friends on top of his car. The police officer told me, because they immediately called me and said, Miss Marquita, the police are coming up to us. I don't know why they're coming up to us. Please tell us what to do. You know, and just the fact that they thought I was a good resource to be in the situation, you know, just melted my heart. But I felt helpless because I'm just on the phone. And so I asked the police officer, you know, I said, put him on the phone. I explained to him who I was, the work that we do. And he said, well, we got a call, that suspicious activity call. These young men were on 11th and Kansas, in those apartments over there. That's where he lives. Ain't nobody in that neighborhood called the police on these boys. They were just boys sitting on the car. That's the suspicious activity. And then they told me that they smelled weed. I can't debate or not whether the boys are smoking weed in the car, but that's a reason for probable cause to be able to look in these cars. We understand that this happens to our kids repeatedly. We understand how this works. And I told him I understand what was happening to these kids. No, I'm not profiling them. Yes, you are. They arrested one kid, they let the other two go, you know. But the impact of having that kind of violation, this has happened to my son before too, it resonates with these kids and they carry it on their spirit. And so this is what Progeny is about. It's about showing these kids that they have, number one, they have a network that has their back. They have people that are going to advocate for them. They have people that are going to be their voices. And it moves beyond just having their back. When we say we have their back, we have their back. So they all got free computers so they can communicate nationally with our national team. We have a group of youth leaders. We go up to 26 years old with our youth leaders. They all get $1,000 stipend for being a part of Progeny. That comes from our national programming. Locally, I took on Progeny as hard work. It was unfunded. I just got my first $30,000 planning grant, so now we're funded. And we're working out in August to get a $200,000 grant so I can start to give these kids jobs. But we're creating stipends within that because I feel like you cannot have kids speaking and putting them on and putting them in the front to do this work and not invest in them. And so it's important that we invest in them because these kids are coming sometimes straight out of prison. They don't have shelter. They don't have homes. They don't have a network that has their back, and they don't have jobs. And we want to make sure we get these things for them. I believe, I say the power of we, Chita, we are better when we work together. I can tell you honestly, by looking in this room, me and Cameron have worked together. He did help me with my first Youth Entrepreneurship Challenge, helped me bring that into Wichita. I'm working with Terry right now. I just leaned over to him and I said, I want you to be a part of the steering committee with Progeny. He says yes. And when it comes to the work that we do in the community, I can tell you personally, my daughter has been touched by a lot of people in this room. So she did late nights. Yeah. You know, she's with Pastor Van at their the programming that they have. Yeah. She was a part of Rise Up for Youth. And she's now going through her sophomore year at Prairie View A&M straight A student studying to be an anesthetist. That was not mama, that was her village. And so I give pride into that. I want to have, we also tell the kids in Progeny, your story is your sword and not your crutch. I do not believe in having young people come and tug at your heartstrings necessarily, because they shouldn't have to rip off their Band-Aids and expose their trauma to get us to believe in them. We know that this trauma exists. So they're empowered in their story. Whether they choose to tell you what happens to them is their choice. I'm not going to have them do that. But what I will do is have Tyler come up and speak about how Progeny has impacted them. We just came from Chicago. Before that, we were in Baltimore. We've been to Boston. We've been to New Jersey, and we'll be on our way to DC next month. This is to give the kids the training that they need to do the work. So they learn how to, we're learning public speaking, and I'm going to do that on a local level here. They learn how to deal with the media. And Tyler was just on the news a couple of weeks ago, speaking about the programming. We teach them how to, actually about the policy that's impacting them. And we're starting a campaign in Wichita about Senate Bill 14. That's $6 million in reinvesting funds from closing down these youth jails. We want to make sure that, number one, that these youth have a say-so on where this money is going because it impacted them, that we create alternatives for these youth, instead of putting them in jail, that we create alternatives for these youth, and to make sure that the community has a voice and that we're watching where this money is going because it has not been on the books. And I feel like, I'm sorry, but I feel like it has not been on the books because if we forget about it, it can be used for something else. Well, we want to show them we're not going to forget about it. We want to show them that this money is going to go back into our youth and in our communities that were impacted, and that we can come up with resources to keep our youth out of jail. So, Tyler, I want you to come up and speak for a little bit about how it impacted you, because honestly, it's not about the work I'm doing, it's about these kids showing up and moving the work, and so they should have a say-so.
So,
Thank you.
my name is Tyler Williams. I was formerly incarcerated in KJCC. Once upon my release, some of my friends, we were all just got out. We were all just scared, trying to figure out what needs to change, what has to do. So with Progeny, I joined Progeny when we were still just 4 or 5 people, just a bunch of kids, just wanted to see a change. And so we came together, we saw the issue, and we were like, okay, well, kids in jail, it doesn't mix up right. Okay, you don't think of seeing, 11, 12, 13-year-old kids in an 8x9 cell. How do they benefit from there? So it takes a community to build help raise kids, build family. Communities do that. And if you just keep them in there, where do they grow? So with Progeny, we've managed to do a lot of good work. We are, again, working on with the Senate Bill 14, trying to get that reinvestment money back into the hands of the community. We had also did a community outreach program with Brandon Johnson, District 1, with I think it was the Take Action on Violence.
Take action on community violence, yes.
We had one of the great communities, and we had a lot of great feedback from there. We had went to Boston, DC, New York, Chicago, doing a bunch of different organization trainings.
We'll be in Alabama. Mm-hmm. We're going to Alabama in October or November.
Yeah, November.
Yeah.
I know we recently just got back from a event in Chicago where we actually had full training on how to be organizers in this community. So with that work, I hope that we can just keep building and make sure that kids don't end up in jails.
Yeah.
Oh, and I did see you on TV, your movie.
Wasn't he amazing? Wasn't he amazing?
Yeah.
Good job.
So how old are you?
I just turned 21.
Okay.
Yeah, so when I met Tyler, we were 19 years old.
Mhm.
He just got out of jail. We helped him find a house, his first housing. That's a big issue in our community, is not having housing for these young people. And what happens when you don't have housing for young people? I have a story. One of our Progeny members in the beginning, I won't say her name, but it sits on my heart. She didn't have a place to go, and I couldn't find a place for her to go. She was 19 years old. She's back in the streets. She started drugs again. When I drive up down Broadway to find her, and when I find her, I still give her money, and I'll start crying when I think about her. But I feel like I failed her because I could not find her a place to stay. And usually I would bring people into my house, but my family said, I cannot do that anymore. So, and I promised my family that I wouldn't do it anymore, so I'm gonna honor them, but losing her broke my heart. And so I wanna make sure that we have resources for these kids, because we cannot afford to allow them to get back in the streets and start that cycle all over again. Progeny, once we get the bigger grant, we're gonna be opening it up to find mentors and create like a big umbrella to surround our youth and let them know that we have their back. And I feel like our youth are gonna be the catalyst to change. And so who better than to be the best advocate for young people touched by the juvenile system than young people themselves?
Question, Councilman Johnson, but couldn't you help with the housing part from the city housing authority?
All of the houses were full at the time, and right now with Brad, we can't because those are displaced other folks.
That's right.
Oh, wow.
It's an epidemic. So and to give Brandon all the credit, because any program that I do, he's had my back and allowed me to continue the work that I'm doing. And he gives me a platform to speak about the work that we're out here doing. And once again, even going into the other programs I talk about specifically, because I get a lot of attention for my work, and I want you guys to understand it's not about me, it's about them. So if you want to honor me and my work, honor these kids, put them on the platform, give them the shine, give them the awards, and that'll make me feel better about the work that I'm doing and show that I'm moving the work forward. So they deserve it. They work really, really hard. So I appreciate you coming up here, Tyler, and speaking. Again, we have their back. They get stipends. We have another kid that had, he was in foster care. His JAG teacher took him on into our home. He has a parole officer that's not so nice to him, Brandon has sent a letter on his behalf. You know, we have an attorney for him. We paid off $1,500 in tickets, and still she put him in jail last week.
Wow.
So we're working with the national program on a bailout fund so we can see if we can bail him out. So that's the level of work and support that we want to show our kids in Progeny. So I thank you. I don't want to take up too much time, so thank you, Tyler. I will go into, and Progeny is the work of the Seed House. That's my actual job. That's where I work. I'm at the Seed House. Thank you, Tyler. And so I'm going to give a quick shout out. This is not on the agenda, but we also have another youth group called Root to Power. Root to Power is young people we're teaching them to be civically engaged. So we're giving them the power to know what's going on in the community so that when they turn 18, they are ready to vote. They're literally telling people who don't vote, if you don't vote, vote for me. I might not be able to vote yet, but you can vote for me, and here are the issues that are important to me. You will see Root to Power out there in the community. We also pay them stipends for being a part of this group. We have 8 young people that we just recruited that'll be out here this summer. You will see them at every event this summer, so we'll be out here. The last thing I'm going to talk about, this is actually my nonprofit. This is called Camp Destination Innovation. Camp Destination Innovation is a nonprofit that's geared toward youth, toward showing youth careers outside of traditional norms with an emphasis on entrepreneurship. The reason why I created Camp Destination Innovation is because I was going to entrepreneurship events, and I was looking at white businessmen who were in these events, and they would bring their little boys to these events. And I see these little boys running around, and you would think no big deal, but I was thinking to myself, by the time these young men are 18 years old, they will have a network, they will have the resources, and they will have the mindset to be successful entrepreneurs. We're not doing this for our kids. We're not doing this for our daughters. If me as a mother brought my child into that environment and had them running around, it would look like I didn't have a babysitter. So it's time to change that mindset. The camp is this is our year 5, so we're going into our 5th summer this year. I only charge $25 for kids to go to this camp for accessibility. I think about the mothers who have more than one kid, and about programming that costs $75 a week for their kids to get in, $125 to $300 a week to get in, and I didn't want it to be a conversation of I can't afford it. And even charging $25, I still do scholarships because sometimes mothers and fathers can't still afford $25 to get in the camp. The camp lasts 4 weeks. On average, it costs about $450 per kid to run this camp. I exist off of grants and the community support. Thanks to the city of Wichita for giving me funding last month, and it allows me to elevate the work and continue to work. I always say that we might charge sardines, but these kids get caviar. We use the Willy Wonka principle in the camp, so they understand, they have a saying that we are the golden ticket. They understand that every opportunity that they go into is an opportunity to seize a golden ticket. They get spoken to by some of the top entrepreneurs in Kansas. And so we always say either you can be Charlie running the chocolate factory, or you can be Violet and roll down right on out of there. And Violet is the one that turned into a blueberry. The kids will yell, "Don't be a blueberry." We start the camp next week. This week we're going to do agriculture and entrepreneurship. The reason why we're doing agriculture and entrepreneurship is because, number one, I want kids to know every aspect of entrepreneurship that's out there for them, so they'll know what they can go into and be able to choose what they want to go into. Also, we were granted a building on 21st. We were one of the 3 nonprofits that were granted a building by Commerce Bank on 21st and Grove. That is a food desert in that community. And in order to respect that community and understanding that it has a food desert, I want the youth to come up with innovative solutions to counter the food desert in that community. So that's what we're doing this summer. I had a curriculum created for them called Ideation to Launch. They're going to be making food carts, and they're going to learn how to take a concept of a product from their mind to learning how to market it, to learning how to build websites, learning how to create a whole business, actually engineering fundamentals into creating the food carts, and how to take it to market, how it gets put on, like how it would look on an actual shelf to market. We are also visiting the Innovation Hub at WSU this summer. And I need to wrap it up, I'm sorry. Innovation Hub, so they're gonna learn prototyping this summer as well. Again, our youth are the most solid investment we can make that yields the best returns. Mr. McAfee, you were speaking to my spirit. In this camp, we're doing intrinsic diversity. And what I call intrinsic diversity is bringing kids from rural communities, urban communities, bringing them together, no guidelines, you'll see the Wichita that we need to see in the future without putting a sticker about a diversity and inclusion and letting it just be surface. So that's the work we're working on.
Thank you so much for that. When it comes to progeny, like, I also feel that even those of us who haven't been in the system, we see some of these stories so much that even when we get stopped by the police, we're like, hold up, you know? So I feel like that's a very important program. Even my mom, like she said, took me to all of her different events and different things like that for entrepreneurship. And so definitely a great program to be into. And so next up, we have Big Brothers Big Sisters, and Miss Rochelle Robertson will come up and speak with you about that.
Good morning. I want to echo everyone. Thank you to Giselle and Councilman Johnson for inviting us out. One difference with me and with Big Brothers Big Sisters is we're not just a summer program. We ask a minimum 1-year commitment for both our littles and our bigs. And with that, we have matches that last a year, and we have matches in our program currently that have been matched for 13 years. So I want to touch on that it's not just a summer program. But Kansas Big Brothers Big Sisters, we are celebrating our 50th anniversary this year here in Sedgwick County. Very, very exciting. We've been around nationally for just over 100 years. So again, echoing everyone, it's that added layer of support for our youth in our community. We serve kiddos between the ages of 5 and 17. Something exciting nationally that's coming down, that we are one of the ones piloting, is continuing our service for youth until the age of 25. So allowing our littles, as silly as that sounds, calling a 25-year-old a little, allowing our youth to stay in our program until they're 25. Ultimately, to continue that relationship, that layer of support, and our ultimate goal is that all of our youth are living at a livable wage by the time they're 25. So all of our matches are made best fit. We do not serve first come, first serve. I know that sounds a little harsh on the front end, but we're looking at personalities, common interests, things they're wanting to do, the littles' needs, how we can best fit. Ultimately, those are going to make longer matches. We're very prideful to say that in Kansas we have one of the longest match lengths nationally. And we're about the second, we float between the second and third largest Big Brothers Big Sisters in the nation. So it's very, very exciting. But we have a lot of youth served already. But there's an additional 50,000 in Kansas that have been highlighted as potentially benefiting from a one-to-one mentor. Our mentors are everyone. We have college students, we have single parents, we have CEOs, and we have people like me that just want to make that small impact, that small difference. Our volunteers, again, they age between their ages of 18 to 75. One of the common things we hear is, I don't know if I'd connect with a kiddo, I don't know if they think that is cool. Just kind of keeping in mind that wide scope that we have. And our kids are the same. We have kids that have single parent homes. We have kids that come from 2-parent homes. We have kids with incarcerated parents and kids that don't have incarcerated parents. So we have a little bit of everything. That's one of my favorite things about our program. Other than that, I have some flyers up here. I'll keep it short. I know Giselle will run it tight. Our enrollment process is super easy, and that's exactly what we want it to be. We try to make it as quick and convenient for parents to just ask for a contact from us, ask for us to reach out to share a little bit more about our program, and to find out if we are the best fit for you. There are lots, as you have heard today, lots of great programs in our community. That doesn't necessarily mean that one is going to be the best fit. So it's just kind of an ask. All my contact information is on the back of the flyer. Anyone can refer a child, and I want to make that clear, is that anyone can do it. If you're a grandparent, if you're a parent, if you're an aunt, an uncle, or just a family friend, anyone can refer a child. We do ask that the parents aware so that when we contact them, they're not completely blindsided, but it's just a way to ask for that, to get the enrollment process started. So thank you again for having us out today.
Thank you, Michelle. So next up we have It Takes a Village with Mr. Terry Gary Atwater, and he'll come up and speak with you on their program.
Thank you, Giselle. Some of you, in fact, most of you may not be aware of It Takes a Village. What we specifically do, so in 2015, I found a niche, a shortage in the foster care system. What that is teens. What do we do with these teens? And someone asked me, why do you take teens? Well, if I asked you, I want you to open up your doors today. I want to bring a teenager in that's going to steal from you. If you leave your car keys around, they're probably going to steal your car keys. They're going to disrespect you. They're going to verbally abuse you. And they're probably going to run when you tell them they have to have some discipline. And I said, I want you to bring that kid into your house today. Anybody be willing? Any takers on that? Because I got some. But so we did that. I started a nonprofit called It Takes a Village, specifically working with foster care teens. There was a shortage. Nobody wanted them. And that's harsh, but that's the reality of it. No one wanted foster care teens. And then, so what I found with foster care teens, two things. Number one, you bring a 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old, they're not getting adopted, okay? Number two, with a teenager that old, if they were going back home, they would already be home. So now we can either deal with them now, or we can hope Marquita can deal with them later when they start going to jail. So what I did, I took a very simple process called in-community housing. I took a single-family home that I owned, and I moved kids in. If it's a 4-bedroom home, I've got 4 kids in there. If it's a 3-bedroom home, I've got three youth in there. And what I wanted them to do, I wanted them to have some sense of normalcy in their lives. I've got one kid right now, 18 years old, been in the foster care system since age 2, has slept in 81 different beds, 81 different locations this individual's been in. And we wonder why this individual has the trauma that they do. Right now, we've got a total of 7 homes. I've got 21 teenagers. I've got 13 boys and 12 girls. Our team has done some wonderful things. Right now, the graduation rate, on-time graduation rate in the foster care system, nationally and in Kansas, is about the same. It's right at about somewhere between 18 and 20%. I'm so proud to announce that this year, from December, the ones that graduated in December, the ones that graduated in May, we had 11 kids, I call them kids, they're teenagers. We had 11 teenagers that were eligible to graduate on time. We graduated all 11 of them. All 11. So I've got a wonderful team right now. Right now, we're getting ready to open up I said I've got 25 teens, I really haven't. We just opened another house. Right now I have 21 teenagers, 21. Out of my 21 teenagers, all 21 of them have a job right now. Out of my 21 teenagers, 16 of them have savings accounts. We've got to get them to a point to where when they get out, they have something, right? They've got to have something to lean on. If they don't, there's going to be some problems for them. The state is changing. The Department of Children and Families right now, I currently work with St. Francis Community Services and KBC Behavioral Services. October 1st, the Department of Children and Families is taking the process back over. Yes, I'll leave that there. They're going to take that back over, so there's going to be some changes, right? There's going to be some changes. Hopefully, there'll be some positive changes. You know, I think Marquita mentioned, every Friday I get a report, as do other people in the community that we do. And let me say this too. In the state of Kansas right now, that have what we call in-community housing, which means you guys have probably passed by some of our houses and never knew you did, which is exactly what I wanted. It's exactly what I wanted. I don't want our kids to stand out. I want them to have, again, that sense of normalcy. So for the age group, which is mine, 16 to 23 years old, there's 7 in-community houses in the state of Kansas, and we have all 7 of them. So that shows you the need. This past Friday, I got a list here in Wichita, Kansas. I won't tell you where the location is, but here in Wichita, Kansas, there were 146 kids of all ages that did not have a place to sleep. That sleeping in the office is real. That is absolutely real. And that goes up every day. What happens in the summertime, kids come back into the system, right? Because what happens, foster parents in the summertime say, hey, guess what? During school year, I have that window from 7 to 4 that I don't have to deal with these kids, if you will, because they're at school. Summertime, that goes away. So we went from 86 kids to 146 kids in 1 week. Because foster care parents are saying, hey, I don't want to deal with it.
The other thing foster care parents, and this is no knock on foster care parents, okay, please, I'm not saying that. There's some great ones out there. There's absolutely wonderful ones out there. But they also, when they go on vacation, guess what? They don't want to take that extra person. They don't want to buy that extra plane ticket. They don't want to have to get that extra hotel room. So they come back into the system. So we're just looking for opportunities to help these. And we've been really blessed. I mean, we've been really blessed as a nonprofit. Just found out, and I'm about to shout and holler, just found out we got invited to a special function, a special party. And we've got someone who's going to speak some life into our girls on Monday, which is going to be absolutely wonderful. And that special someone is Yolanda Adams. So we're actually going to go and she's going to talk to our girls, which I'm just ecstatic as all get out. That Yolanda's going to take the time and try to speak life into our 8 girls. Our 8 girls, all 8 of them have been sexually abused. 4 of our 8 have been sexually human trafficked. So we're dealing with a really tough population, but I love every day of it. Again, you know, so people ask me all the time, what do you need? What do you need? Probably one of the things, if you can imagine, and those of you who've had teenagers, you can imagine I tell people all the time, at our homes we don't speak English very well, but we speak food. So one of the things that all of us go to banquets all the time, and you look at all that extra food, right? We work with a group called ICT Food Rescue, which is just absolutely wonderful. Stephanie Bear Merritt is her name that does that. They'll actually come and pick the food up from these banquets afterwards and bring it to our homes. We don't limit food. Our kids fix their own meals. They wash their own dishes because we're trying to get them ready for that next stage when they're out on their own. And so again, we're constantly looking for those opportunities, towels, sheets, you name it. Because when our kids leave, they take everything that they use with them because that may be all that they have. So again, I don't have a service offer. I will tell you this. People ask me all the time, they say, well, let me ask you this, do you have bad kids? Do you have bad kids? I say, no, I have good kids from bad situations. You know, I have wonderful kids from bad situations. Now, they've learned how to adapt, right? They learn how to adapt and adjust and do what they do because of being raised up with, whether it be crystal meth or whatever the case may be. So they learn how to adjust. So we're looking for those opportunities. And also, I want to say something, too. For those of you who don't think that sometimes our elected officials are doing what they're doing, I can tell you, Brandon approached me recently about a location, a building, okay? We're working with that now, which could probably take about 50 of those kids that are spending the night at this office and put them in some place that's decent, right? Could put them in an environment, so I appreciate that, Brandon, for your help there. Senator Aletha Fauci just left. She's worked with me and helped me with some situations as well because we're constantly looking for times. I'll tell you what, if I have one bed open, because of the age group that we have, particularly our girls, if I have one open bed, within 4 hours, if I put the word out, I have that one open bed, within 4 hours, I'll have anywhere from 20 to 40 requests to get in that one bed.
Whoa.
The need is that great. The need is that great. So people ask me all the time, Terry, how many homes are you going to open? I don't know. I just keep opening until my wife says I'm crazy and come back home. But we'll just keep doing it. So again, I appreciate y'all, and certainly all these services here that are offered, I love it. My kids go to late night with their Cameron. You know, we do that. We work with some of the other groups as well. And again, when you go home tonight and you go to your house, you know, think about the number of kids, particularly foster care kids that are out there that don't have a place to go. One of the reasons I love the Wichita River Festival, okay? I love the Wichita River Festival because I know that when I go down there, I'm going to see some of my kids that are homeless. I know I'm going to see them. Now, unfortunately, they're waiting for you all to leave your purse on the front seat so they can make sure they can rid you of it while you're having a good time at the foster care. They're waiting for a gentleman to see that his wallet's not completely in his back pocket because they've got to survive, right? They've got to survive. But I look forward to seeing those kids and trying to connect them up with additional resources because I tell people all the time, we opened in 2015. I haven't had a day off since 2015 because we are 24 hours a day, 365 days a year because you can give them all the resources, which is wonderful. I use them, trust me. I use those resources, but if they don't have a roof over their head, how do you find a job?
Right.
You know, how do you attach the resources? How do you find good medical care if you don't have a place to lay your head? So we're going to continue driving and striving to do that. What I'd ask is that each of y'all continue to pray for us because it's tough. It's tough, you know, when you've got a kid we recently got a kid, and it's not a sob story, it's a real story. Mother and father were crystal meth addicts, okay, out in western Kansas. You'll see the big blue tarps that they put over, particularly now, over roofs to stop the rain and what have you. They would so they took the kid out in the dog run, put the big blue tarp around the dog run, okay? So they can have their meth parties, because they were good parents, right? They don't want the kid inside with crystal meth. So they would put a stake in the ground and chain the kid in the dog run. That was where he spent his days. And so I asked him, I said, what did you do for water? And you can't show any excitement with these kids. You have to have a poker face, because when you do, they shut down, right? Because they feel like they've done something wrong. So I asked him, I said, well, what did you do? What did you do for water? He said, well, they'd bring me water in a pan, and I would drink it out of the pan. I said, okay, got it. So, well, how did you stop the water from getting warm outside in the summertime? I said, Mr. Terry, you drink it fast. Okay, makes sense. I said, what do you do when it gets hot outside? So I go in the doghouse. This is real life, folks. This is not a joke. I mean, these kids are dealing with this each and every single day, and we're just trying to find a little spot where we can help some of these kids and help them get to that next level. Because you know what you're gonna do with them now, you're gonna deal with them later. Because these are the people that are gonna make sure I get to draw Social Security at some point. So, but anyway, I appreciate you all allowing me to talk. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Giselle. And again, just keep us in your prayers.
I want to thank everyone who came out today. Actually, y'all, I told them at the last minute, and they really came out, and I appreciate you all bringing us the information. And so now we have one more. So we have our youth advocate program. We actually just got in contact with them, so they're going to be wrapping it up just one last time. And so feel free to come on up.
Hi everybody, I'm Deb. Like she said, I'm from the Youth Advocate Program, and thank you for letting us come out. We've recently joined the coalition, and it can get a little confusing because they're the Youth Advocate Coalition, YAC, and we're the Youth Advocate Programs, YAC. So that can get a little tricky there. Listening to everybody that's been here, it's just amazing because we do a lot of what everybody here does, only differently. What we do is we have advocates who work with kids. Our motto is get them out of the foster care to prison pipeline, as well as get the ones in the JJ system out of the institutions and let them work on their stuff in the community. So we work with youth that are also in foster care, foster homes, bouncing placements. We actually have a youth that is living at It Takes a Village right now. He has been in our program. He was already at It Takes a Village whenever he entered, but he's been in our program for about 3 months. But basically what we do is we have a no eject, no reject policy where it doesn't matter what a kid does. If we have a JJ kid and he goes out and he commits a crime, we go visit him when he's in lockup. We continue to work with him. When he gets out, we pick back up. We don't drop them because, they get in trouble or they've done something. Recently, DCF has decided that, hey, we're not gonna pay you for services that our workers are already doing, St. Francis workers and KVC workers. What we do is our advocates go out and they work with the youth and the families. If they're in the system, we work with case managers and foster parents. They go out one-on-one and they spend anywhere from 8.5 to 15 hours a week with the youth. We work on things like if they have probation requirements, if they need housing, if the parents are about to get electricity shut off, then we help them with that. We help them with clothes, job interviews, just insurmountable resources. So that's why this connection is just so great for us. Right now, when DCF said, hey, our social workers are doing this. I'm a social worker, used to be a social worker, couldn't do it anymore. There's no way when you have 35 to 40 kids on a caseload that you can one-on-one spend 8 to 15 hours a week with those kids. There is no way. Unfortunately, DCF doesn't see it that way, and our contract ends with them June 20th. So what we are doing is what we do nationwide. We are in 15 different states, been around since 1974. We are in other countries, just kicked off in Guatemala. So we're doing this work everywhere. We are new to Wichita. We have other counties in Olathe, Johnson County, Riley, Geary, Wyandotte County, who's been doing this for a little while. Wichita, we've only been here since October. We have found that there is an extremely great need here. It's already been gone over what the rates are and, you know, the numbers and everything, so I won't go into that. However, now we are moving into juvenile justice. KDOC has funded for our program. Now we're just trying to get Wichita on board with it. We are running into some roadblocks. City doesn't have to fund it. Sedgwick County does not have to fund it. It is state funded, it's already approved, we already got a number of slots. But for some reason, Wichita's like, not sure if we wanna use those slots. Why not? Why would you not want to do that? So anyways, but that's our next goal. DCF has let us take on a family preservation, which means we work with youth and families before they go into the foster care system. These are families that they're saying, hey, you're on the verge of losing your kid. If you don't do X, Y, and Z, then you're gonna lose your kids. These kids are gonna go into the system. So now we're gonna go in and say to the families, we're gonna work with you. We're gonna help you with your goals. We're gonna get you these resources. If you work with us, we are gonna help you keep your kids. That way they're not going into the system because they'll just fall through the cracks, as everybody else has talked about. Basically what we need right now is community resources. We have a partnership with the YMCA currently where our advocates and our kids can go for free. Because we are a nonprofit, our budget per day when we take our kids out in the community is $4. So if we're with them twice a week or 3 times a week, $8 to $12. It's really not a whole lot to do a lot with them, especially when you're taking them out for 15 hours a week. So what we're asking for is partnerships, you know, places where they can go and do things for free. We're working on trying to get with the zoo and exploration place and places like that. So if anybody is willing to work with us on that level, that is amazing. That is where our greatest need is right now. Like I said, we've been around for a very long time. The DCF Family Preservation, we are actually gonna fund ourselves. We are funding it ourselves because we believe in the need in Wichita. We believe in our ability, and our success rates are really good. So we said, okay, you don't want us to work with the kids that are in the foster care system, so we're gonna fund this ourselves. Give us 5 families. We're gonna show you family preservation. At the end of the day, when we're done with this pilot program in 6 months, every one of those kids and those families are gonna be successful. They're not gonna be in the system, and the families are gonna be having resources. So we have so much faith in that we're actually funding it from a grant that we get once a year. So we're working on that, but our greatest need right now is just partnerships. And also we are working with the agencies. Like I said, one of our kids is at It Takes a Village, and we would like to get to the point. We have Vanessa, who is an advocate / HR / all-purpose person, that we're trying to work on getting some grants and stuff, so that if there is a place like It Takes a Village that says, hey, you know, I have this kid, or the Wichita Children's Home, or other placements that these agencies use, say, hey, I have a kid, high risk, you know, he ran, or she did this, or she's doing this, we need you to work with them. We need you to take them, spend that one-on-one time, get them these things, and help them, you know, be more successful. Because when we're successful, they're successful. So we're working on that just so that we can take kids from foster homes. We have kids in foster homes right now that, like the summertime, parents, you know, foster parents don't have nothing else to do with them. Our advocates go out and they pick up the kids and they spend these days with them and take them out in the community and do stuff. So that way they don't say, hey, we're gonna send them back. We can give them that relief or release. So that's basically what we do. And we just really need a lot of support from the community to get our youth involved in things. So that's about it.
thank you all so much for your time and patience with us. As you can see, I work with so many passionate people that are really out here, really wanting to work with our youth and instill in them those good traits that we want them to have. So like I said, my card is on the tables. Feel free to grab one and let me know of all different types of programs. Let me know if you're wanting to be a part of these programs and if you're wanting to join the coalition as well. And at this point, I'm going to pass it back over to Councilmember
I got
Johnson.
a comment. I really appreciate Councilman Johnson bringing you brilliant young people here. I'm really excited about it. But I would like to know, where are you from? What's your background? How'd you get here? Are you from Wichita?
Yes, I'm from Wichita, and I have born and raised here, Northeast, Mueller, Brooks, and then I just graduated from WSU. And so I am a single mother household, and she did everything that she could, raising us to be everything that we can be. And so she's still instilling in us, and now we're actually instilling in her since we got other education, you know. And so, yes, my passion has always been youth, just stemming from my mom. Like, she was always like the community mother, and we would always be like, Mama, our friend is doing this, and she would go out there and, you know, mother all the kids. So, and I've been told that I have some of her traits, and so youth are definitely a passion of mine, being raised up in a single mother household and seeing some of my friends in some of these situations and different things of that sort, even some of my other family. And so I felt like this was a great match for me, and I enjoy working with everyone, and I feel like they enjoy working with me too. So
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so it's 11:30. That went a little longer than I thought it was. I've got one more program to tell you about. So we're doing a free summer youth program. As you can hear from everyone, there is a need. All of our rec centers in District 1 will have a day and 2 hours where young people can come in for free, get some food, have other activities, and WPD will be there as well. So I'll run this by you. We either have flyers or we'll have some flyers to get done. So at Lynette Woodard Center, they will do Wednesdays starting next week from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. McAdams will have Fridays from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Edgemore, where we're at now, will have Saturdays 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Probably 12 a.m. And then Linwood will have Saturdays 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. So 2 hours, young people can come in for free. Again, games, we'll have food, we'll have WPD. So we want to do that. Again, that's ages 6 to 18. It is free. And we'll be doing that at every rec center. We wanted to make sure youth in every part of District 1 had somewhere close to go. So we'll get those flyers out to you. And I'll give you these quick updates, and then if you do have questions, since it is 11:30, we can get those answered. Tuesday City Council meeting, everybody heard about electric scooters. We'll be talking about that Tuesday. Those scooters will be dropped into Wichita. Our staff has been working really hard with those companies to make sure that Wichita won't look like some of the other cities where you may have seen those where scooters are everywhere. We've been talking about specific locations where you put them up. If you choose not to follow those rules, you will have an extra charge on your card, which you probably won't like. If you get too many of those, you'll be banned from using them. So that presentation will be Tuesday, unless that piece changed, but I hadn't seen it change. We'll also be talking about places for people. We'll be talking about that at our district advisory board Monday night at 6 o'clock, as well as at the council meeting. So if you have questions, please make sure you show up and check that out. Places for people, I guess real general, is to help with infill, making sure we get more density, better use out of our urban areas. And at the same time, some things might need some reductions of regulations to help speed that process up. So all of that will be talked about on Monday and Tuesday. And I think Tuesday, it's not an opportunity for the public to comment, but I think we're going to change that at the council meeting. That way, if people have questions, we can get that answered at the council meeting. So that's Tuesday. Again, that's 9 a.m. down at City Hall. Also on Tuesday is our aquatics plan, finally. So we've been talking about it for a while. We'll be voting on it Tuesday. The staff recommendation is option 3. Option 3 gives us 6 swimming pools, 6 splash pads throughout the city of Wichita. In District 1, that means Edgemore and Linwood would have a splash pad, and McAdams would have a swimming pool. The whole presentation and design will come Tuesday. The reason it's taking so long is art. We wanted to make sure there were some artistic elements. Some of the designs have changed, so again, all of that will be presented Tuesday. We'll vote on that. Staff recommendation to me is the best option. It gives more Wichitans access to a swimming pool. And again, we couldn't keep every pool open that we wanted, but we did keep 6 instead of going down to 3, which was the original proposal. The splash pad here, I've been talking to staff about trying to get that done pretty quick. We've got that pool out there, that's a danger. I've heard kids have been playing and hopping the fence and getting into that empty, probably not empty now with all the rain, but we want to make sure that gets filled in and something constructed pretty quickly. And I'm excited about Plainview getting a splash pad because we haven't done a whole lot down there, so that's going to be awesome. And again, splash pad that you'll see on Tuesday is not what you see at Riverside. It's not what you see at Fairmount. It is much different. I was blown away by what I saw, so I'm hoping that you are too on Tuesday. 9th Street progress, as you can see, 9th Street, the construction work is done, the art is going up, the mural is halfway done on 9th and Hillside, the mosaic work is being done on 9th in Minneapolis. And then the Adinkra symbols are going in, so you see that on the bus stop on 9th and Grove. That's going to be also on the concrete. You'll start seeing that go in as well. And then we had some hurdles with the pillars on 9th Street. The state drafted a new policy that kind of cut that out in Kansas. So we have some friends now in the governor's mansion, and they reached out to the Secretary of Department of Transportation, KDOT. She came down here Thursday, and we had a nice conversation with her, the artist, Ella Bacchus, and they have given us tentative approval to go forward with that. And we're working out an agreement for no restrictions on Wichita because our highway broke apart our community. And we want to use that highway now to try to bring some art to unify our community. And she saw that, and she even offered, once it's all done, to come down herself for unveiling of the 9th Street project. So that was awesome. Last 2 things, West Star update. They have sent out letters to people in the neighborhood affected by the transmission route, talking about next steps. So what poles will or will not get replaced. So again, that's Mossman and Green. That letter went out, I think, last week. I've heard some citizen feedback from it. They are committing to do a public meeting here in the future, probably this summer, July or so. I can't remember what that letter said. I'll go back and read it. But sometime this summer, they'll have a meeting where they will talk about specifically what they are doing, get some community feedback, and talk to anyone. And it will be open to everyone. You know, they focused on that area. I think the folks impacted in the area, what they say is has a little more weight, but it will be open to everybody to talk about what's happening. They're going to explain what phase 2 is, and again, when phase 2 actually happens, they'll have more community meetings to talk about that. But there's a lot of information that has been getting out in different ways, and they're going to try to host a meeting to be there themselves and get the full picture out. So that's going on now. They gave a tentative 2020 time frame for those poles to get replaced. We're coming upon summer when most of that demand is, so I don't think they'll replace anything while demand is going to be higher with the higher temperatures. If you recall, they started work on that in late August of last year. So I don't expect anything to happen this summer outside of this community meeting and talking about next steps. So that's been happening. Lastly, for me, there's also Juneteenth coming up. So you've got the River Festival going on right now. Juneteenth this year starts on June 14th. Some pretty awesome things are happening. So last year, that mural that's on 9th Street, part of that was a Juneteenth service project, and kids came in and helped to paint it. This year, McAdams is going to get a new surface on the basketball court. So it's going to be one big piece of art, not just lines and three-point lines and all of that. One big piece of art with inspirational quotes around it. Sherwin-Williams has donated all of the paint for that. So that's going to be awesome and graffiti-proof. So that way we don't have to worry about damages being done there. The volunteers and artists have also volunteered to paint the goals, the basketball goals themselves, and the backboard. So that's going to be a pretty cool looking thing. That starts on June 14th. That project actually is that whole weekend, so June 14th through the 16th. There's a Wichita Hair Expo that happens all the time. That's going to be at the Metroplex. That happens. And then Father's Day, there's a Father's Day celebration at the center. So men have been nominated. I think that is done with now. 10 men will be honored. They will be able to come in and get some free food and hang out and just show our appreciation for the dads in our community. That Wednesday, June 19th, the, I guess, world-renowned Dr. Michael Waters will be here in Wichita to speak. He's the keynote speaker, as well as a youth program that normally happens there with some poetry and honoring the 400 years of what happened there. So we'll have some drumming and things going on that night. But Dr. Michael Waters will be speaking about kind of the state of Black America. The Friday the 21st is Music in the Park. So we will have lots of local artists performing, some names you know, some names you need to know. And then Saturday, of course, is the big day with the parade that starts at Wichita State, goes all the way down 17th Street to McAdams, 1.7 miles of fun. Last year we had a few thousand people out there. I think we'll have even more this year. And some of the bigger names, I know some of you know who Brother B is, his son who's traveled the world. His band will be playing that night. Kevin Harrison's band will be playing. Wichita's own Natasha Houston, she sings gospel. She'll be playing that night. DJ Richie from Wichita, but he's big in Texas. He'll be there DJing all day. So it'll be a really good day of fun, community. Hope you all come out. If you want an armband, they're $5, $3 for kids, and they're available at Tops on 21st Street. It is back open. Food is great. As well as the Office of Diversity and Inclusion and United Lives Culture and More on Central Ambassador. And there's a kids corner as well that has a lot of good stuff.
At the meeting about the cats.
I was here too. And so, as Ms. Overton said, my last announcement was going to be Monday. We will be talking about trap neuter release, feral cats. That presentation will happen at the District Advisory Board meeting at 6 p.m. over at Atwater. Again, that's something that I think you should come out, hear what's going on. If you have concerns, you can get answers to those concerns. If you support it, if you oppose it, we all want to hear from you. But definitely come out there. And again, feral cat issues, just to think about cat colonies, they happen now. Trap neuter release actually happens now. It's just not an ordinance. There are some wonderful organizations that pick up cats, take them to get neutered or spayed, and then bring them back. So again, this ordinance proposal is kind of looking at putting into writing something that's already happening and trying to give some guidance. So I hope you will show up Monday, 6 o'clock. I've been getting a lot of emails already.
Hope everybody else show up.
And then with that, you are free to go. I appreciate it. If you have questions, I will stay back and answer those for you. Thank you for being here.
Yes, yeah. Here. Hey.